Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. On this channel, we discuss day-to-day problems people face in their lives. Let's start with the video. My wife and I have been married for over 9 years following the end of a very happy and healthy previous divorce process. It might sound strange that I'm saying a divorce process might be happy, but my last relationship ended on really good terms and we stayed close friends and showed up at each other's birthdays and parties and holidays even after we got remarried. Well, for however short a period of time we got, that is, because following our divorce about 3 or 4 years, my ex-wife passed away after fighting cancer for a short yet painful period of 6 months. She was taken away from us really early and surprised and shocked everybody. Of course, nobody more than our kids, who are conscious enough to sense the genuine pain and emptiness that the passing of a parent leaves on their child. At the time, my oldest boy was 11 years old and my youngest was 9. So when I say conscious, I don't mean hyper-aware, but I mean experience life through pure emotions and get impacted by its events in the most extreme way possible. I previously referred to my wife as that to avoid confusion between we are now divorced, and that's the reason I'm telling the story. Although I'm very grateful she was in my life at the time that she wanted to help me raise my kids and be a good motherly figure for them. Our marriage ended in a most gruesome and grotesque way than my previous one. I'm not necessarily going to rid myself of any blame or responsibility over the horrific way in which the divorce was handled, but I'm definitely going to say that I'm a man of peace and wouldn't have reacted the way I did had my ex-wife not provoked the worst out of me. And that's genuinely not me trying to put the blame on anyone else, and I think that's a realization you'll make yourself throughout this story. After my ex-wife and the mother of my children, whose name was Lisa, passed away 5 years ago, seeing that she was married and that her husband really loved our kids and cared for them on a deep level, I felt inclined to reach out to him and ask if he wanted to have the kids over for a few days during the holidays throughout the year, seeing that things would be really lonely for him now that Lisa was gone, and the least I could do was let him enjoy whatever is left of her through my kids. He cared for them and loved them sincerely, and they loved him just as much and really appreciated going over to his place and spending days with him, and that brought joy to my heart and made me feel very content because in a sense I was keeping my peaceful and passive relationship with Lisa through her husband. Things started going sour when my wife started complaining about my kids going over to his place and feeling entitled to tell me not to have them go over to a stranger's house and pretend like he's actually not a part of our family. And I'm not gonna lie to you, this was one of the points in our marriage in which I questioned whether I made a good decision to marry her so quickly after my previous marriage or not. It wasn't about her having a say in my kid's life or about my kids going over to another man's house. It was the fact that she felt entitled to tell me what to do with my kids, even though I hate to say this, but she's not their mother and she's not related to them, and they're not very fond of her. It just felt wrong that she was telling me what to do with my kids when I wasn't doing anything wrong to them or to the person hosting them, who has genuinely proven time and time again that he deserves to be a part of their lives. As I mentioned, things ended up spiraling in our marriage, and I realized that my decision to marry her was possibly one of the few wrongfully impulsive decisions I've ever made, and though I can't say I regret it, I can certainly see a better version of my life in which she doesn't exist. My second wife changed at some point in time, and though I can't blame her for changing, I do feel entitled to my feelings of strong dislike towards her after the fact that she started influencing my kids' lives negatively. About 2 years ago, I was starting to genuinely believe that she wasn't the woman for me, and every conversation we had about that made me realize just how different we fundamentally are. When we decided to get the divorce, it wasn't a conversation in which that realization was made by the both of us, and we came to the conclusion that we're better off separated. It was after a massive argument about whether I would let my son go to college in another city or not. She was once again feeling entitled to have a say in my son's life that even I didn't feel entitled to, and it bothered me deeply because it doesn't speak of a good person, and I don't want to spend the rest of my life with someone I don't fully know. I'm not sure if this makes my divorce seem impulsive or not, but sometimes you have a feeling about something not being right, and then life keeps throwing signs at you. This felt like one of those times, and I wasn't going to compromise the company of a lifetime by ignoring them. After we got the divorce, my wife kept insisting on taking my kids over to her place, which I didn't say anything about. I asked them if they wanted to go, and they seemed really hesitant and would often come back bummed out that they were separated from home and talked into going to her new home, which is in the neighboring city. Not only that, but she would almost insist on making a point to drop them off again almost every single time. She'd bring them back 2 or 3 days late, which not only meant that she wasn't keeping her word, but she was forcing me to explain to their schools that my ex-wife was keeping them away from school during weekdays without any valid reasons. The reason I no longer allow my kids to go over to her place is because the last time I let them do so, she called me asking me to keep them at her place for a couple of months. Keep in mind that this was never a part of our agreement nor discussions, and my reaction was obviously dismissive of this idea. Not only would it be too much of a hassle to have them transferred from the school they were at to the school near her house, but I doubt that's even something they wanted and possibly something they would hate both of us for doing. At that point, she was seeing them and spending more casual time with them than I was, and I couldn't even intervene because every time I did, she would bring up how I previously let them go stay over at my ex-wife's husband's house, who is a stranger to them according to her. I'm assuming her logic went something like this. She was there for me when I was raising them during the most critical of times, and therefore it gave her the right to claim them as her own and do with them as she pleases, not only neglecting the fact that these aren't objects that you claim or feel entitled to, but that these were my kids and that they had already been through enough in their lives, and putting them through more stress would be doing them a disfavor and behaving like a crappy human being in general. As soon as I told her now and explained to her why is that such an outrageous idea, she hung up the phone on me and refused to pick up for many hours to come. I was working at the time and couldn't really do anything about it. But when I got home about 7 or 8 hours later and she was still ignoring my calls and messages, I got in my car, drove as fast as I could to her house to check whatever the hell had been going on. I was horrified to learn that the house was empty and there was no sign of my kids anywhere near it. I immediately picked up my phone and dialed 911 and reported that my ex-wife had kidnapped my children. Now looking back at it, I'm not sure if you'd consider this a kidnapping, but it scared the living daylight out of me. When the police called her on her phone, she picked up and told them that she was on her way to the airport with my kids and with the intention to fly out to Paris and spend vacations with them. From the outside looking in, you would genuinely think this was an insane person, and the fact that she was acting the way she was only added to my anxiety and concerns, and it is obviously needless to say that the moment my kids were dropped off at my place by the police, I never let her see them or speak to them ever again, no matter how many times she called crying, begging me to let her see quote unquote her kids. Not the a-hole. I'm not going to try to analyze what kind of a person you are, but this woman is probably mentally disturbed. It shouldn't be left custody of your kids because it shouldn't hesitate to take them out of the country without your approval once she's going to do it many times until she actually does it and you lose contact with her and possibly the ability to have your kids back. Keep her away from them. Not the a-hole. She sounds like one of those people who were saying at some point and gradually lost their sanity and ruined their lives as well as the lives of the people around them along the way. Your kids are young and influenceable, and I don't think they should be left anywhere near her. She's going through a critical time or whatever the hell is going on with her. Don't let your kids get traumatized by interacting with her and keep her away from them. Not the a-hole. Why the hell did the police arrest her for taking away your kids like that? You should have pressed charges and let her know just how much of a safety violation that was for your kids and trust breaker for you. Though I can tell that you're not going to let her anywhere near them anytime soon, the fact that she doesn't know the gravity of what she did here means that if she ever gets the chance to do it again, she won't hesitate, and that's probably something you should have intervened to make sure it doesn't happen again. Next story. My boyfriend and I had a little New Year gathering for some friends on New Year's Eve. His friend Jeff, who is 43, asked to come. I'm not that keen on Jeff. He sang a song about me being fat at a wedding a few years ago, and I was mortified. I have an eating disorder and have always struggled with my weight. Anyway, in the past couple of years, Jeff lost both his legs due to him not taking care of his diabetes. So he moved into a nursing home with his elderly mom, who has since passed away. I agreed to pick up Jeff from the home, helped him with his wheelchair, and we said he could stay over at our house on New Year's Eve. I told him later that if he needed the toilet to let me know and I would help him. In front of people, he got creepy and started making jokes, asking if I was gonna hold it for him and stuff. It made me so uncomfortable and felt a little violated since I was only trying to make sure he was being taken care of. He's known my boyfriend for years, so I assumed he would let one of us know if he needed to go. I bet you can guess where this is headed. I woke up on January 1st to find Jeff asleep on an armchair in the dining room. The room was smelly, but he was pretty drunk, so I assumed he was just smelly because of that. I asked if he was okay and he just told me he wanted to sleep, so I left him. Later in the afternoon, my boyfriend made him tea. I was hungover as F, and the smell of him was making me want to vom, so I stayed in the kitchen with the back door open. My boyfriend asked Jeff if he was ready to go home, and Jeff said he was still drinking his tea, so it was another half an hour before he got ready to go. As my boyfriend was getting away from his shoes, Jeff said, "OP, I'm sorry, but I think I might have had a little accident." He made it sound like it was minor and I assumed he had just peed himself. I told him not to worry about it. He then asked for a hug, but given him being creepy and smelly, I declined. It was only after they left and I was wiping the chair with disinfectant that I realized he had literally crapped himself. Instead of calling on us for help to go to the toilet, he shat himself and then sat in it for hours afterwards. It was caked into the leather, it took ages to clean it properly, and we're gonna need to get a professional in because I can still smell it no matter what we do. I'm appalled at him and so insulted that he thought that that was okay even after the offer of help anytime he needed to go to the toilet. I think I might be the a-hole because he is disabled and maybe he was embarrassed to ask for help to go. But on the other hand, we invited him into our home and both told him to ask if he needed help to get upstairs to the toilet. He chose instead to shit in our chair and then deliberately sat in it drinking tea like nothing happened. Will I be the a-hole if I send him a message telling him he is disgusting and that he's never allowed back here? Not the a-hole. That is disgusting. My first instinct is to say that maybe he is just mortified about it. And if he's too shy to ask for help to the point that he would rather sit in his own shit instead, he should have stayed home or brought a caretaker, friend, family member who is capable of helping him discreetly. To clarify, I do not believe that disabled people should have to stay at home rather than have their disabilities accommodated. I believe original poster did her best to accommodate him, but it seems to me that he has no problem being rude and gross regardless of his disability. Clearly, he has some issue with you. The wedding speech about your weight should have been a better explanation, and has chosen to make it as difficult as possible for your significant other to keep him as a friend. Maybe this is his way of letting you know how he feels. At the very least, you never have to have him in your home again. Let him shit on his own furniture. Not the a-hole, not the a-hole, not the a-hole. Dear Lord, both my parents were old and completely infirm when I was their caretaker for a combination of 28 years. They both alerted me when they needed to use the toilet. My father was nonverbal but made sounds. If an 89-year-old woman and a man with Parkinson's and cancer could alert me, that jackass certainly could had he wanted to. He is a piece of what he left in your chair. Oh man, this is a tough one. I can see why he might be embarrassed to say he's had an accident. And could he be hiding his embarrassment at you needing to help him to the bathroom by making those still unacceptable jokes? I think you should talk to your husband and get his take on it if he knows him very well. Overall, I think a soft nod the a-hole, given that you're having to have professional cleaning done. Next story. My wife and I have 2 kids together. She has a son from a previous relationship. His dad is not in his life at all, so he is with us all the time. And I have a daughter from a previous relationship. My ex is very difficult to co-parent with, and unfortunately, I only have my daughter every other weekend and 1 day a week. I used to coach her team because it gives me more time with her, but she's too talented to be coached by her dad now. I'm fighting like hell to change this to get more time. My daughter, 13 female, has expressed to me that she is hurt that I spend more time with my 2 younger kids, 6 female, 8 male, and my stepson, 15 male, more than her, and I'm doing my very best to let her know that she is not loved any less, and if I had my way, I would get to see her more. My wife and I had to travel with the kids, and my ex has made it very difficult and always refuses to allow my daughter to go. She needs permission from both parents to leave the state, so unfortunately there is nothing I can do at the moment. My wife thinks that the other 3 should not be held back because of my daughter. I can share more about my daughter's and wife's relationship if this info is necessary to make a judgment. I agree that the others should not be held back, and I don't want them to resent my daughter if we do not travel because of her. However, I'm not comfortable going on these trips if she's not there. I gave my wife my blessing to travel with my stepson and 2 younger kids, but told her that I cannot join because I don't want to hurt my daughter more. I told her we can travel in-state as a family, but until she's 18, I do not feel comfortable going to places without her. My wife is really angry with me and says she doesn't want to travel alone with the 3 kids, and I'm being a bad husband father for not going. I told her that I understand her feelings and that we can pay for her mother or someone else to go with them if she feels like it is overwhelming. We got into a really big fight, and I ended up telling her that I'm looking out for the well-being of all 4 kids, but she is only looking out for her 3. She told me that I'm an a-hole for not going on the trip and accusing her of not loving my daughter. I did not accuse her of this. I just said she is not thinking about my daughter's feelings in this instance. So am I the a-hole for not going on a trip without my daughter? Edit. Talked to my wife and told her that we can go out of state, but she has to help me tell my daughter since it's her idea and she can't put it all on me. Told my ex that I will tell my daughter that she is the one blocking the trips. Told both of them that every trip we take without our daughter will be a father-daughter trip out of state I take with her when she turns 18, and I will be taking solo trips with her if I'm forced to leave her behind. I'm sick of my daughter being used as a pawn. Mild, you're the a-hole. All of your kids are entitled to spend time with you and enjoy vacation. Your wife needs someone to split driving and share discipline. She also wants your time and attention. Punishing everyone in your family because your daughter can't come is wrong. You're playing favorites and wasting precious opportunities to have fun and make memories. Be fully part of your family. Make sure your daughter knows how much you, her stepmother, and siblings wish she was there. Tell her she is always invited, but her mom has to say yes. You're the a-hole only for not taking the ex back to court over this or explaining very clearly to your daughter that it's her mother causing this issue or both. I understand wanting to shelter kids from custody-related animosity, but she's old enough to know your ex is a hard ass and is preventing many things related to her. It's not fair to keep planned trips away from everyone else. If your daughter is guilt-tripping you, saying you love everyone else more, it's time to remove the emotional handcuffs and be straight with her about exactly why you cannot see her more or take her on vacations.